The Real Estate Photography Podcast is brought to you by tourbuzz.net, high-definition virtual tour and photograph hosting, now with interactive floor plans. Sign up for your free trial today. Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Photography Podcast. This is a Q&A session with me and Larry Lorman. How's it going, Larry?
Pretty good.
You excited?
Oh yeah. This a lot of nice questions here.
Great. Well, this time is going to be a little bit different than the previous one we did. We want to bring back the listeners in the next one, but scheduling has been a little bit crazy lately, at least on my end. So I apologize. It's my fault that the listeners are not on the podcast this time. Forgive me. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with Ted's question. Here's Ted's question. It's about delivery. What product do you deliver to the customer? For instance, when I deal with a home builder, I deliver a binder with some sample prints, contact sheet, a CD of the photos in print, web, large JPEG, and a web viewing slideshow. I also include a movie DVD of the photos I create with Photomagico. For real estate agents, I scale it down a bit with just a CD and a contact sheet in a folder. I found it's a waste of my time and money since the life of the property in their eyes is limited. I'm interested if you deliver something similar or take a more streamlined approach of posting on a site such as SmugMug. Thanks. Love the podcast. Well, thanks, Ted. Larry, I'll let you take a stab at this first. What product do you deliver to the customer?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm coming at this from a angle a little different than Mike is, in that I'm a realtor that's shooting for my own listings,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not doing huge amounts of delivery. But one of the things, the two things I'd like to point out is, to me, as from the realtor point of view, there's really two things that are important in delivery. Number one is the speed,
Mm-hmm.
and number two is it's nice to have that CD, so that if I lose the photos, or if you're just delivering some more high res photos for print, I can have that on file. And what I would recommend people do would be sort of a combination. That is, deliver those MLS size photos immediately, like as soon as possible.
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah, and then put the CD in the mail, because if you've got those MLS, loading the MLS is always the thing that um, you're always under pressure from the seller to do.
Yeah, and I completely agree as well on both of those. And what you're saying, Larry, is kind of like a two-pronged approach. One is the compressed MLS version, and the other one is the originals for the agent to do with whatever they please, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I was going to say along the same lines, I'll say that those are the two things I do deliver, but more specifically, what I don't do, I don't deliver a binder with any physical materials such as prints, contact sheet. I don't even deliver a CD. Nothing tangible, and I can go into that in a minute as to an additional reason as to why. But yeah, I find that my clients, they just want the electronic versions, because when I give them a CD, they're just going to pop it into their computer and download it onto the computer so they can do what they want with it. And I just say, let's just cut out the physical media and get it to them. Does that make sense?
Right, right. Yeah. And the other thing that I would add is that there's, if you're just starting out and you're not really slammed with work, the if you personally deliver, if you personally have something to deliver, it's kind of an, a way to make personal contact. On the other hand, uh, if you're really slammed with work, there's no time to make any deliveries. So it's the sort of thing that um, when you're doing volume, you got to do it all quickly.
Yeah, I actually really like that idea, Larry. If you have the time and it's, you're not pressed for something and you want to deliver those full resume images in person, it's a really good idea. I'm a huge fan of any excuse to follow up, and that's a perfect excuse to follow up is to hand someone images. I couldn't tell you the number of times I've bumped into another client after originally delivering some images to a client, and something has come about from that. So absolutely.
Yeah, I think you should look for reasons to be in the off of your your clients, and so you do like you're saying, you're bumping into clients, and the other thing is that all of the, all of these all these customers you have are really personal. They're people, and
Definitely.
um, they like that face to face stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I was also going to add another thing to this is, in terms of what products do I deliver, I should also note that the nature of my business is not to deliver marketing materials like flyers or work on website stuff. The agency that I do all the work for, they have two people that are responsible for that. All they want from me are the images. If my business model were set up a little bit differently, I might be more interested in delivering, printed materials.
Right, right. It makes a big difference in the products that you're delivering.
And the one last thing that I was originally I alluded to, I said I'd come back to it, was one additional reason as to why I don't deliver physical materials is because, and I wrote a blog post on this on the podcast blog about sales tax, and it has to do with state sales tax. And
Oh
in
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, and in this is a tricky one, and it's state specific. But if you'd like to read it, head over to the blog and read it. But in a short summary, is depending on the state that you live in and you do your work in, you may or may not be subject to collect sales tax for your state if you do not deliver. This is a logic puzzle because I'm saying not like five times. If you do not deliver physical media. So if I send my images through the internets and they download them, technically no product or good was sold, only a service, which means I don't have to siphon money from them and give it to the state. No, I don't have to charge sales tax in the state of Virginia, where I live. That may be different where you live.
Yeah, that's a great point. Um,
Do you know what it's like for you, where you are?
yeah, actually, I I spend time in both Washington and Oregon, and in Oregon is there's no sales tax, so that's not an issue. There in Washington there is sales tax, and for a very long time, um, it was as you had just described. If you deliver bits, there's they don't consider that tangible, and there's no sales tax on it. Um, just about a year, 9 months ago, or what, maybe at the beginning, yeah, I think it was at the beginning of 2010. I know on the PFRE Flickr discussion group, there was this fairly intense discussion that they had changed the wording in Washington,
Oh,
and it sounded like they were in it they were trying to start collecting sales tax on those non-tangible things. It was really muddy though, and um, there was there were several points of view, and I what I suggested to these guys was that they just collect sales tax because um, the problem you get into is if you don't and then you owe it, you're in big trouble.
huge
Uh,
trouble. Yeah, yeah, you're not
uh,
only liable for that money, but the interest on that money.
right, and I was worked with a guy a long time ago at Boeing that had a business that did that and got way in over his head and owed a ton of sales tax, and it is not a pretty sight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say two things. Since we're on this side tangent here, contact your if you're confused about this, if you're unsure in any way, contact your state's tax office, and I would say not only once, twice, three times, four times, and see if you're getting a consistent answer from the agents answering you. Because I personally have been told various yes or no, which are pretty big in this kind of an issue. Various, yeah, you have to collect it, and then the next person I talk to, no, of course you don't have to collect it, and the next person is, maybe you should ask for a ruling. Yeah, and these are the people who
Yeah,
are interpreting the
that's
rules.
the problem. Is it's really easy to make a mistake in this area, and that's why I recommend to people make the mistake on collecting too much, and you're not going to get in trouble in the long run if it's really confusing.
Yeah, it's true. And in Virginia anyway, anything to get even more complicated, anytime you deliver something tangible, and I think this is true for many states at the current point in time. Um, your sales tax is you're actually billing two different things. Not only one is, let's go ahead and say, the DVD of the images that you've given them. That's a good that has to be sold for a certain dollar figure. And then additionally, you have to charge sales tax on the service that produced the good. So it's not double taxation, it's just they're itemizing what you're taxing them, or what you're collecting the tax for. It's terribly confusing, which is why, and I say it again, I avoid delivering any physical products. I just don't do it
Yeah, yeah,
until the law catches up.
yeah. I just noticed here looking at Ted's question, we didn't answer the the thing about how he delivers it. Uh,
Ah,
I think he was asking, for example, use Pogo Plug, Dropbox, BoxNet, and those kinds of things as well, isn't he?
yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking when you brought up his second point, is how do you deliver it? Absolutely via some sort of file sharing service. What do you typically use, Larry?
I'm a really big fan of Pogo Plug. In fact, I I read your post a long time ago and just had seen Pogo Plug and got it, and I just I love it. It is really a nice, and the thing I like about it is it's a device you've got right here. I've got right here in my own office, and I can put as much storage on it as I want.
Yeah.
Um, and it's it's just great. You can send people big files. You can send them in a little slideshow format. They can download them. It's just really a nice service. It's very similar to what you can pay for a monthly payment with Dropbox, and that's a really nice service as well. It's just that with the Pogo Plug, you pay for it once and you use it forever.
I completely agree, and I'm glad to hear that other folks are also singing its praises, because it is. I think it flies under the radar of most folks, because most folks say, I want to have my own FTP, and I love the convenience of the Pogo plug so much that I don't even want to hassle with FTP or have my clients hassle with it either.
Right. Yeah. FTP can be involved to set up and kind of daunting when your clients see it.
Another cool thing, on a third side note, is that Pogo Plug recently announced their Pogo Plug Biz, probably about 3, 4 weeks ago, which is, and this is ideal, I would say, if you even remotely enjoy the Pogo Plug itself. Pogo Plug Biz, it costs 3 times as much money, of course, but it will get rid of the pink Pogo Plug branding and allow you, as a real estate photographer, whoever's listening, you can customize the banner. You can look at data usage and statistics to see who's downloading, where they're from, how many times they've downloaded it. You get a lot more customizable options, and it seems like a worthy upgrade if you're using it for strictly business use. So check it out. Mine has not come yet. Thanks a lot, PokePlug. But I'm looking forward to it when it arrives.
Yeah, I had not seen that. It sounds like a good feature.
Yeah, they are charging an extortion fee of $300 for it, even though it seems like it's all firmware update. But anyway, I shouldn't have said that. All right, Ted, I hope we answered your question, and good luck. All right, Chris has a question about shooting raw. I'll read this. It's a pretty long one, but I want to give you fair time. All right, so the first time I shot in RAW for a job was actually by accident, but it was too late to do anything about it once I realized I was shooting RAW the whole time. The results that I got once I got home were basically the same as if I had shot in JPEG. I didn't see any difference when I imported them into Lightroom. The second time I shot in RAW for a job was deliberate, but the results were drastically different. The images, once imported, look completely different from what they look like in the camera. So how do I approach a shoot when shooting RAW? When I get home and assume that what I saw on my camera when I was taking my shots is what I'm going to see when I import them into Lightroom. I found that I would be doing more processing of my images just trying to get them back to the way they looked in my camera from my start point and then processing them from there. So, what do I need to know about shooting RAW before I start shooting RAW? I'm not talking about the basics like the take up more space or you need RAW software. I mean the quirks, the subtleties, that they are not right on the surface. Alright, Larry, let's talk about RAW.
Okay.
I would say if I were to jump in first, I don't know that you're going to see a drastic difference. I'm intrigued by what your experience was, but I think what you're going to see is a very neutral, non-processed, non-developed image. Not as sharp. It's going to be a little. I guess I would use the word dull, but that might be too harsh. The images are going to be a little less sharp. They're not going to have as much contrast. Obviously, they're going to be larger, but you said you don't care about that. And that is pretty much it from my perspective. How about yours?
Yeah, well, um, I this reminded me of I made a did a post like I think about 4 or 5 years ago where I made this statement that I thought everybody should use RAW,
Hmm.
and I was amazed at the time. It turned out controversial. I had all these people saying, "Oh no, that takes up too much space," all these various things, and um, my perception though is that there's there's very much been a change, and that almost everybody is shooting RAW
Hmm.
now. And to me, if it wasn't clear to me that Chris really understood what the difference is. The fact that with a JPEG, you have the microcode in your camera interpreting the image for you, whereas with RAW, you get to interpret the image. And to me, if you understand that, um, I find it hard to find any reason not to shoot RAW.
I'll definitely agree that I see RAW as the new standard, at least for my shooting anyway, as well. I would just continue to say that if you're to look at it from what's the difference to what my naked eye sees, you're just going to see less contrast, more of a neutral tone curve, and not images that are not as sharp, not as vivid. Uh, like I said, an undeveloped image. And when you shoot JPEG, the camera chooses what to do, how much saturation to add, the contrast, the clarity, the tone curve, and in fact, you can customize what the camera produces, but it does it every time. So um, I think that's what you're asking. Um, the other thing is, if I may, it says the images once imported look completely different than what they look like on the camera. And I was just going to say, I don't know what completely different means, but I can say this. Images on the back of the camera are going to appear slightly sharper than they do on your computer screen, typically because they have a higher pixel density, and for some reason, they just look clearer and sharper, and you think, oh, I got it. And when you bring it back, you're like, I was slightly out of focus. You ever have that?
Yeah, yeah. The other thing too that I was going to suggest to Chris is that what you can do is you can. I notice he's said he's using Lightroom. You can apply a preset as you import your images,
Yeah.
as you bring them in, so that you won't have to. I mean, that is, you can set the amount of sharpening, you can set your tone curve um, in a general way, and you can set up a bunch of those things, and it just applies them to all images, so that you might have a lot less processing after you start looking at your image.
That's a good point. And the other one I would say, if you're going to, if you find that you like a particular type of jumping off point, don't forget about camera calibration, which is if, say, I shoot Nikon. Nikon has released, and they're available on Adobe's website, the the um, the camera calibration defaults, and you can say Nikon D2H portrait, neutral, standard, whatever it is, and they don't actually change any of the contrast, brightness, exposure, clarity. They don't change any of those settings, but it's a different, like I said, calibration starting point that it actually gives the image a different look depending on which one you pick. And I'm sure there are Canon ones out there too, but it's a good tool.
Yeah, that's certainly something you can do as well.
But yeah, for the most part, RAW is I think the way to go. All right, let's talk about Alice's question. Alice's question is about contracts, and I'm just gonna start off with Alice says that she's had several quick questions that she hopes we can help her with. She's spent countless hours on Google and hasn't found anything useful. So, two questions. If, say, for example, a brokerage firm is in contract with a real estate photographer or company, are the agents of the firm required to use that real estate photographer only? Do they have the option to use someone else? I ask this because I've been finding that most firms are in contract with a photographer already and wondering how I could get in to make any money if other agents are not allowed the freedom to choose who they want to work with. Let's answer that question first. I Larry, what do you have to say?
Well, I guess the thing that I would answer is that you really don't know. It's hard to know about any particular contract, and there isn't any one standard way of doing this, I don't think. But I
Precisely.
will say, having been on the inside of an office before and seen a lot of this go on, um, it is unlikely that the broker would insist that agents all use um, the same photographer. And the reason I say that is that usually what happens with these kind of contracts, at least the majority that I have seen, is that really what happens is the photographer comes to the broker and says, well, I will make you a special deal, a special price based on volume, and you have to have so many a year. And so the broker is not saying you can't go to some other photographer. They're just sort of promoting getting this special deal, and it's a opportunity to save their agents some money.
Yeah, I would piggyback on both of those points. First of all, you don't know because you don't know. I mean, it's contracts are not public knowledge if you're dealing with a private company, and they're probably not going to spill those details to you as to exclusivity arrangements. Some are exclusive, others aren't. And then the other one is I could tell you from My own personal experience is that the contract that I have is an exclusive. This is kind of odd. So see if you can stay with my logic, with the logic of the contract, and it's an exclusive contract where the agency may not hire any other photographer to do their work for them. However, they cannot govern their agents because they are independent contractors. So if an agent, for example, who works for the agency says, I love what you do, and I know that it's not going to cost me a dime out of my pocket for Mike to come photograph my listing. I just really, really like the way the other guy does it, and I'm willing to fork over 100, $150. They have the right to do that, but the agency itself does not have the right to do that since we're bound to an exclusive contract. So the law of common sense would say they're going to get the product that I produce for no additional cost for their typical franchise fee. It would be asinine for them to say, but I really want to spend money.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, um, I frankly, I think you and Thomas Gruber are the only ones that I've ever that I know that have those kinds of contracts. So they're, I am really not very familiar at all with
I gotcha.
broker contracts.
I think I want to reinforce what you had said at the beginning and what I said in addition to what you said is that you don't know because every contract is a little bit different. For example, Larry's saying that my contract and Thomas Grubau's contract, we've talked to Thomas twice already, we have much different contracts. First of all, our contracts aren't the same. They're a little bit different. And then we have the nature of our contracts are more than likely different than the brokerage firms that you're seeking out, Alice. They probably have slightly different arrangements. So it's impossible to know unless you talk to the broker. I would advise this: schedule a meeting with the broker, say hi, introduce yourself, give him some of your materials, and say, I'm interested in working with you. How do I get in? I'm not saying you should undercut somebody, but it's always important that competition plays in the market, and you should be there. Let yourself be known. Don't hide out in the shadows and think that they're going to recognize you, because they're probably not.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good approach. And who knows, they may tell you all how it works. And
Yeah, they could spill the beans. I have no idea, but they're not going to knock on your door. I could say that.
yeah, right.
All right, and the second question Alice has is about EULA and licensing, end user license agreement. I didn't even think of this, and it's one of the most important things. Can you guys help me give a sample or steer me in the right place to help me come up with licensing terms in relation to real estate photography? Do you allow the photos to be used until the home gets sold or until the listing expires? That's a pretty good question, and I would say at first, my personal comfort level. This is more of a comfort level of how you as the photographer feel with licensing, and how the broker feels with the product that they purchased. Do you feel comfortable giving them the rights to the images for an endless period of time, or until the home is sold? Because they might not like it that you're taking away their rights to use the images after the home has been sold. Because what happens if that contract falls through or it goes back up in a year? They're probably not going to want you or another person to do the same work twice. So this is another discretionary thing up to the people, which is you and the brokerage, writing and composing the contract. I would say, for me, after I've done the service, the images are now the to use anyway, are now the real estate firms to use, but they never have the copyright of the image. That's one point to make. They never have the right to sell the image, whether that's for $100 or for free. they're not allowed to give away the images, but we just say you can never sell for $0. So they don't have the rights to do that, but they have the right to use it from here to eternity. They have because chances are the properties are going to change a bit in the few years that they're on the market, and they have the right to put it in any print advertisement they want. That's part of the deal that I feel comfortable with. Larry, what would you say if you were engaging in a contract? What's your comfort level?
Well, I agree with what you said. That's a good way to do it. The thing that I would like to raise here that a lot of people, a lot of real estate photographers don't see, but is really important, is that the MLS is involved in this, and if you're not careful, you can put your customer, the agent, in a bind. That is, for example, on here in the Northwest, here in the Seattle area, our Northwest Multiple Listing Service says that the first image, the primary exterior image, can be used beyond the listing. And what they mean by that is that it is used after the listing is sold by appraisers, and so it can be on the multiple listing for years. So you can't write a license agreement that doesn't accommodate what your local MLS listing rules are. And so basically what the MLS is interested in is it's interested in feeding those images to other real estate sites and for letting appraisers use them in the future.
Yeah, they're not typically interested in making a profit off of your work. It's more of a technical sort of matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I've seen license agreements for photographs that basically you put the agent in a bind. That there's no way she can follow both licensing agreements.
Yeah, and I would say typically the agents aren't interested in using these photos for anything other than marketing and selling the property. Once it's done, it's done. I mean, if they have other things in mind, then you should always leave the door open, absolutely. If they want to purchase them, say, for a portfolio of homes that they sold in the past 6 months or a year, then
Right.
they're more than welcome to do that. But it is very important that if you were to engage in a contract that you spell out all of these terms. And just like Larry said, sometimes things go unnoticed until you cross that bridge, and then you go, "Oh, I didn't think about that." So absolutely, I'm glad you're doing your homework, and thanks for asking the question. Any way we can help, we want to do that.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that 99.9% of the agents want to do the right thing, and it's just a matter of explaining to them. And I mean, frequently, photographic type licensing isn't something they've run into before and really don't understand.
Yeah. I would say one other thing. The other, and I mentioned this when Thomas and I were talking, the one main reason I'm ever even considering talking about licensing with a client is when they ask me, "Can I give these to the builder?" That's when the conversation starts, and I have to explain, "No, you may not, and here's why." And I mean, they're more than welcome to look at it on on the MLS and whatnot. But if they'd like the images, they'd have to talk to me, and that's something that you put in the contract that you have with the brokerage, that the agents are merely using the images. They don't own the images.
Yep, they're very likely going to want to give them to somebody, the buyer, the seller, the builder or whatever.
Yeah, the builder, and you just said too, the people selling the house oftentimes will say, "Can I get a copy of those images?" Because
Yeah.
they're typically, if you're doing your job right, they're better than what they're used to seeing. They're like, "Wow, these are actually they look good. I want to keep these for me." And the agent will often, because they agents absolutely they want to be friendly, they're people, and they want to say, yeah, sure, no conflict, you can go ahead and have them, I just want to make sure everything runs smoothly. But they don't have the ability to do that, even though they think they might. So it's important to spell that out. All right, we have one last question, and that is from Cassie. Cassie has a question about real estate video, and here it goes. Lots has been spoken about incorporating video into the real estate photography business. It seems like a natural progression and great add-on, yet I'm not really sure if it's a good idea. Are you doing this? I will say no, and then I'll pass it on to Larry. I'll back that up in a minute. But Larry, what are you thinking? How do you feel about video in your business?
Well, um, I'm on the video learning curve myself, so we're not using it extensively. Um, but I was very interested to get um, a newsletter by a um, a real estate trainer in the Northwest. Um, that's just a recently. It's August 2010, and basically, and this is a trainer that helps realtors brand themselves and do all sorts of things. She is saying that um, having what does she call it, a video, talking brochure, basically standing in your listing, telling people about it, where you're actually selling yourself as well as the listing. She's claiming that that is not only becoming popular, that as an agent, you've got to be doing that to survive. I don't know as I go so far as to say you've got to do it to survive, but it's certainly becoming popular.
Hmm.
And I've posted in some past posts examples of those. And but I would say the advice I usually give to people is that um, with video, I think you have to be very careful because it is very different. It is doing it and doing it well is very different than stills, and and you want to kind of ease into it, and because there's as much non-photography things to make it work well as there is photography things. For example, helping the agent write a good script, and so that they can stand up there and do it. It's kind of like you're directing a movie, and so more than likely, it's not going to warrant a. I mean, if you, I wouldn't recommend you make a big investment to go out and do this, but you do it over a period of time, and you kind of learn the techniques, and I think there is an opportunity out there to do it.
I definitely I definitely agree that it is becoming more and more popular, and that does matter. It does, because people will often say, after they say, "Oh, you do photos? Do you do video?" That might be the second thing they say. So it is a popular, growing trend, and it obviously people are asking for it. They might be looking for. They might be a little bit serious about hiring someone to do videos. Um, a couple of points as to why I said no, as to why I'm not doing it. First of all, just like Larry said, it's doing it and doing it well are two different things. If you've ever put it this way, if you ever go to a wedding watch the difference between a wedding videographer and a wedding cinematographer. They are two different things, and you're going to find that when you watch the video that they've shot, the videographer just kind of stands there and documents the events that are going on, and a cinematographer will tell the story through video. And when it comes to really, really good real estate video, anything that's ever elicited an emotional response within the viewer is because there's a story being told. You're not just listing off specs of a house or how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms and the land and the neighborhood. You're actually selling a lifestyle. In fact, Larry just posted this morning. This is being recorded on Monday, August 23rd. And Larry, you posted a video this morning of a video that does just that. It sells a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and the lifestyle it's selling is selling an urban lifestyle, and the shots are of the area that they're doing is, I mean, they're not really glitzy. They're kind of ho hum. Well, I'd say First Street in Seattle. You know, it's not really glitzy type of thing. But what they're doing is they're selling the urban lifestyle, and it does a really good job, and it uses a person talking about what she likes and what she's going to do, and going down to her local restaurant and having a glass of wine and how much she really likes this restaurant. And that's the kind of thing that even though it's video, it's a very different approach.
It is, and that's that. And there's other ones out there as well that are videos done well, because they actually they captivate your attention. You're interested. You want to know more after you've seen it. Typically, what you'll find out there is a video that tells you everything you need to know, and those are two different things. Accomplishing that task of making them more interested after they finished is a huge challenge. So, for what I just said, I don't do video because I don't know how to. That's not my area of expertise. I'm telling the story through still images of a house or of a wedding or of an event that I'm covering. In this case, it's in real estate. So that's what I specialize in, and I don't claim that I can do it because I don't have the experience. I do personally think that over time I will become more and more interested in it and become better at it, and just like everyone else, follow the learning curve up and do that. But at this point in time, no, don't have the equipment, don't have the interest, and my business model is not focused around that. Now, if I may continue, I have more, because I thought about this question for a great deal, and I thought about instead of the creating end, and I thought about it from the viewing end as well. Psychologically, I think that much of the audience who are looking at houses, looking into them, they don't even have the attention span to look through 20 or 25 images, let alone sit there and go through a moving picture that's describing the house to them. I don't think that and that's a very blanket statement to make, but I'll back it up by saying I don't know that I have the interest. If I'm looking through houses, I don't have the interest to sit through 20, 30, 40 videos, no matter how short they are, that are in every property. I am interested in seeing a couple of pictures, and then if I'm more interested, I want to see more pictures. I'm not as interested in watching videos unless I'm going to take a vacation there, or it's an urban lifestyle that's being sold to me, or whatever it is. It's got to be something a little bit more special. Does that make sense? Am I just talking, or is that a little clear?
No, I think you're exactly right. In fact, there's a photographer up in Nashua, New Hampshire, that is really popular in video. His name is Fred Light, and he has several times um, pointed out to people on my blog in comments that the process that goes on is just like Mike described. First of all, you're looking between 100,000 and 200,000 in XYZ area, and you get 500 listings, and you're scrolling down through there, and you look at a little thumbnail, and that little thumbnail, the exterior shot, is going to what the kind of the hook that's going to get you to look at a little farther, and you're basically you've got a limited amount of time, and you can maybe look at 4 or 5 houses, maybe 10 if you've got a lot of time, and you're eliminating things, and you go down to see more pictures from the ones that kind of look good from the exterior, and then you get down to a point where you have 3 or 4 that you just fall in love with. And that's, as Fred Light says, that's where you go to the video and you watch the video. And so video is really not, it's sort of a different animal. It's not something that tries to...
Yeah, doesn't try and replace photography.
Right. It's not a replacement for photographs. It's sort of an added dimension that you want to know more about the neighborhood, or you want to know more about the realtor and that kind of thing. So it's a very different thing.
Excellent way of putting it. And I completely agree. I think that is how it is in many, many different businesses, including real estate photography, is that video is that it's not in the forefront of your mind. And I was also going to say, maybe one day when we all have iPads. Wait, I mean, no. Maybe one day when everyone has a blazing fast internet connection and everyone has a computer that doesn't need 500 different plugins, and there's some sort of standard out there, which we don't have, maybe when you click on a listing, you'll be walked through various things and pictures and videos and all this stuff where it won't involve you to click, and there'll be motion everywhere. Maybe that will be the day, and it's something you see in all those futuristic movies. I don't know that that's going to happen. I really sound like I'm harping on video here. I just don't think that video replaces photography, and I think that's what a lot of people have said. Oh, it's become more and more popular that I'm going to switch to this, or I'm going to add it because people are going to want it more. I just think it is a different monster.
Yep, that's true. There is another trend that's going on. It's worthwhile mentioning it. In many ways, it's not really video, but a lot of people are building YouTube videos out of still photos, where they're using Ken Burns panning, and they look, compared to a video where you're walking through the home with a video camera, it looks pretty good, because at least you don't have the camera bouncing around, and that's really not true. But it's more of, as much as anything, it's to kind of promote, to get some to get good SEO for your listing, because it's YouTube.
Right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. I hope we answered all the questions that were out there. Please feel free to submit more. We're going to keep doing this as long as you keep sending them in. So with that, I say thank you, Larry, for taking time out of your day and preparing answers, and thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
All right,
see you later.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.